The Leading with Audacious Confidence podcast is brought to you by the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Ted Olson, the author of Feel Good About Selling, is on the show to help us feel good about selling. And he did just that. So if you don't like sales or feel icky about it, or maybe you just want to create a proper sales system for yourself or your sales team, pay close attention to this one. Let's go.
Welcome to the Leading with Audacious Confidence podcast. Our mission for the show is to support leaders who are climbing that ladder of success with warnings, practical tips, and techniques from leadership experts to highlight not just what it takes to be a leader in this age, but in the process, build your confidence to show up more powerfully in your role. I'm your host, Alicia Couri, founder and CEO of Audacious Concepts, Inc., a boutique consulting firm providing audacious solutions to nagging and persistent people issues clogging the revenue pipeline of your organization. From optimizing talent to reducing conflict and improving communication, our brain science, people data tools, and expert coaching help you find the elegant solution to get the job done with more ease and less stress. Now, let's join in on the conversation. On the show today, we welcome Ted Olson. Now, I've known Ted for a couple years, and this is going to be a really fun interview. Ted, to me, is that compassionate sales trainer. Like, he really sells from the heart with a lot of respect, not just for the sales process, but for the people involved in the sales process. And I want to read his bio because there's something very important in it that I must say that was in the bio, right, Ted? So I'm going to read your bio. So Ted Olson is the author of Feel Good About Selling, a book written to help people feel good about selling and to avoid the bad habits that hurt sales. He has trained thousands of salespeople from all different backgrounds and industries. He uses his sales experience to help individuals and organizations with sales enablement, sales training, demand generation, and marketing. He's built sales teams that have broken every record at their respective company. He's created a unique sales framework and methodology called PEP or PEP, which stands for Positioning, Exploring, and Presenting. PEP offers a flexible approach based on core selling principles for anyone in sales, whether they like selling or not. When not at work, Ted practices martial arts and homeschools his 4 children with his wife, Nicole, and they have 2 dogs, Oatmeal and Honeybee, and a guinea pig, Pinball. His kids wanted to make sure that that part was in there, so I needed to read the bio to make sure we talked about the 2 dogs and the guinea pig.
Yeah, they're always talking about the pets, for sure.
Yes. So Ted, how did you get started in sales?
Yeah, great question. So I started when I was 17, and it actually it came from the automotive space. So I was an auto mechanic, hands-on fixing cars. And what you realize very quickly in the particular shop that I was in is I did my own upselling. So I had to talk to the customer. I had to tell them, number one, I had to first field the call, make the appointment. I did everything.
What a great start.
It really laid the foundation for what sales is. So I had to sort of have that initial conversation, get the car in, do the diagnostic, then come back to the prospect, tell them what's wrong. And then I would upsell. Hey, while it's here, I noticed this, and this. Should we take care of that? Or do you want to space it out? It's entirely up to you. And that is where I developed a lot of my selling methodology. That said, my mom, who's now in her 70s, has 4 decades of President's Club. So I learned a lot from her as well growing up.
Nice. Very nice. That's always great when you have a parent that's a mentor for you to learn these vital skills. Because I remember my first job was in sales, probably around the same age as you. Probably around the same time too. But, I was horrible. I was horrible. I didn't have any kind of mentor or anybody I can look to that was in sales. And so I was put into that role of selling, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I was horrible. I was horrible. But I hopefully I've learned a few things from then. So before we actually hit the record button here, we were talking about our different behavioral profiles. And so you're a strategist. And so how has that helped or hindered you in the sales process?
Yeah, great question. So PI, amazing company, amazing product. And that is actually how I build sales teams, using PI. And that's how I tell everyone to do it. I mean, to not use PI when you're building any team is a little silly.
It's you're like doing it blindfolded, basically. Like, it just feels like you're feeling around trying to figure, and it's like, why not use the tools that are available? Like, just feels like you're groping in the dark.
It does. Exactly. That's a great way of putting it. So I think as a strategist, so PI has 17 reference profiles, and the one that I fall into is a bit more analytical, a bit more introverted. And so how does that play out as a seller? What are the strengths to that, and what are the caution areas? My caution areas is, we'll start there and then land with the positives. So that the negatives would be, I can be very blunt and very terse. I can sort of just get to the point. And I don't have a lot of patience. The positive side of that is I am driven. I don't need to be motivated. I do want to help people. I truly have a desire to do good. And I think being a strategist allows me to think about and reflect upon, what is the best way to do that? How can I create the best customer experience, the best buying experience? And what do I need to do as an individual to execute that? So for example, I have to bring up my empathy. I have to bring up my warmth. I have to be patient, right? And execute a process and not jump to the end, as I often try to do.
Right.
A little bit about what some of the self-awareness that using behavioral tools like PI can bring to an organization.
Absolutely. And so sometimes you're doing it without any knowledge whatsoever, and you're trying to convince yourself of the illusion that you're going by gut instinct, and that our gut is always telling us the truth, and it's not. And so sometimes we need to understand the other people in the room and not just ourselves. And we don't even understand ourselves half the time. So using the tools that are available through PI, it's really foundational, I think, for building any kind of team.
For sure.
So you've trained, so I have a two-part question here. So you can grab hold of whichever part you want to answer first, but you've trained thousands of people in sales. And so over the course of your career, what would you say are the top 3 challenges that teams have when it comes to selling, and individuals? So for individuals and for teams, like, what are the challenges that you have found that universally?
Yeah, that's a great question. So universally, there is no clear system. So when you look at teams, you come in and you realize, oh, so you're all doing it differently. Interesting. That's tough to scale, right? So if we like shift to corporate mindset for a second, it's like, if you want to build a sales system, you need to actually build a sales system. And that system needs to be able to be iterated on. It needs to be flexible. And you need to be able to teach it and so that people can actually do it, and so it doesn't sound, you don't feel like a robot.
And
By the
it's
way,
built like in frameworks, right? Not like specific scripting, because as we talked about behavioral types, there are some people that just won't follow the script.
for sure, yeah, if you certain maverick profiles that tend to go off script, like yourself, and wing it.
So, yeah.
There's beauty in that, because there's humanity in that, and there's authenticity in that, and that's very important in sales. So you never want to strip that out. Here's what I think, that when we're thinking about organizations, their biggest shift right now is they've got to stop being salespeople and they need to be trusted advisors. That is number one, a mindset shift, and number two, a skill set to learn, because they don't know how to do it. What they sound like is everybody else.
Wow.
And this is a hat tip to one of my mentors, Jim Spertolozzi, who turned me on to this idea of a business therapist, to really be a coach, a counselor to your prospect, to come to the table with value, to create the safe space to allow your prospect to find their way and how you can help them solve that problem. That is the sales industry is in the middle of that right now, and it's just at the beginning of it. They've got their little baby giraffe legs, trying to stand up to be a trusted advisor. And that is what I see most when I look at sales teams in general.
So I'm going to flip to your book for us for a moment, because we're going to talk a little bit more about the methodology that's in the book. But you talk about in it the hero's journey, where a lot of times we might see ourselves as a salesperson as the hero, but it's really your prospect that's the hero. So that's one of those flipping things around that you're talking about.
Exactly, Alicia. And most people will nod their head and agree with you. Oh, that totally makes sense. But then go right back out there and start talking all about themselves, their company, and their product. What we need to be talking about is the problem we solve for our customers, because that is what's going to engage them. It's great that, we've been doing this for 20 years and we're the number one in X, and our product can do this, that, and the other thing. What the prospect cares about is, what's in it for me? Me. That's all they're thinking about. And that idea comes from, it goes all the way back to Aristotle, but it comes from folks like Joseph Campbell, Nancy Duarte, I think that's how you pronounce her name. Who does a really great job with this is Donald Miller in his book Brand Story. And it's this idea of the hero, the guide, and the villain. And the villain is the problem. The hero is your prospect, your customer, and you are the trusted guide. And the greatest example of this is Star Wars. So Yoda is that trusted guide. Obi-Wan is that trusted guide who needs to empower Luke and help him with the Force to knock out the Death Star, battle the Empire, etc. Most people get that wrong.
Yeah.
And you see it. You see it in their copy. You see it on their banners. It's all about them. It's all about me. Look at me. Look at how awesome I am. Nobody's interested. Yeah. They want to know how you can help them.
How can you help me? Turn it around, flip it around, and help me. So that's one of the things that I read when I was reading in your book, and the book is called "Feel Good About Selling," by the way. So, if you didn't catch that at the beginning, that idea that we really need to be that guide to help them come to the decision. And I've heard you talk about that. We need to empower them, or at least let it be their idea, help them see that this is their idea, that our solution fits them, so that they have ownership, they get the buy-in. And that's one of the laws of leadership, right? Is to get the buy-in, but in a way that they own the decision and you're not convincing them of the decision.
That's a great point. I think a lot of us in sales think that it's our responsibility to somehow force that decision or make that decision, or like we've got to get something. And the reality is what we need to do is create the buy-in experience, ask the right questions to help our prospects make that decision for themselves and give them that choice. And a lot of folks really have they struggle with that, because that's where it gets into this mindset of a trusted advisor. That's what a trusted advisor will do. A trusted advisor will say, here are your options, right? A salesperson will say, hey, if you buy today, you can save 10%. It's like, well, you know what I mean? You're trapped in the corner, and that doesn't feel good to anybody.
Yeah. I have a mentor who says everybody resists everything. So the minute you start to put, we have this idea that we have to overcome objections, but the minute you start to push, the natural law of resistance is you'll push and they'll push back. So we need to work differently, so we're not working against that law of resistance where people are automatically going to be, like, oh, wait a second, and then give us a reason, or give us, the the obvious objections: money, time, family. Those are usually the top three objections that people have, right? Money, time, and my family won't let me do it, or something.
Money, time, bandwidth. Time and bandwidth are big right now. Money for sure, especially in times of economic uncertainty. But there's a new book coming out, I think by I can't remember their names, but it's called The Jolt Effect, and it comes from some of the folks who wrote the Challenger Sale and the Challenger Customer, which are two books that I recommend all the time to everybody. And they basically realized their new research. So to be clear and to be fair to everyone, it's like, this isn't rocket science. It's like they didn't discover penicillin or anything. It's like, this is something that if you're in internet marketing, you've known this for a really long time. And that is eliminate risk. So if you're selling something, if you're looking for somebody to make a change, you have to de-risk that process, because guess what? If they sign up with you and things don't work out, they're going to look bad. So this is even less about fear, and it goes back to shame. No one wants to feel shame. We will go out of our way to avoid feeling shame. So if we can just show a clear process of how someone can be successful, that's why I go back to this whole concept of, tell me your sales process. Show me what that buying experience looks like. Because speaking of your podcast about confidence, if you're not clear on your process, then you won't have confidence in your process. And guess what? Neither will your buyer.
That was going to be my next question, actually. My next question was, how many times did you have to help boost someone's confidence in the sales process to help them really step forward to make sales, especially if they're not specifically on a sales team, but like they're a business owner or a consultant or a coach, and you have to now help them even have that belief in themselves that they can go out and sell?
Yeah, and that's really my audience. So I didn't write a book for salespeople. I wrote a book for people that aren't crazy about selling, but need to, right? And there's actually quite a lot of folks out there. And if you read the sales books that are out there, it's like, I don't want to be part of that, right? That's like, whoa, that's enough toxic bravado for me. Thank you very much. So I think number one.
I love that you wrote a book for people who don't want to do sales.
Right.
Because we have to. We all have to.
We all have to, but what I think we really need to do is just help people. And let's redefine what sales is, and let's be really simple about it. It's really about helping somebody get from a place where they don't want to be to a place where they want to be, which should feel good. And if it doesn't, we're doing something wrong. But back to your question, I think number one, in order to have confidence, like even before your process, what problem do you solve? So whenever I ask that question, what I hear is all kinds of answers. Oh, we do this. It's like, that's not what I asked. I get that you're, awesome at this, but what problem are you solving in the marketplace? Can you articulate that? I'm not being aggressive here. I really help me understand what problem you're solving. So for example, like a hairdresser. A hairdresser cuts hair, but that's not the problem they're solving. Especially with me, losing my hair, right? I don't have that problem. What a hairdresser will do for me is make me feel younger. They'll make me look good or better, right? Which is hard, is a stretch to begin with.
No.
Right? So we have to understand, what problem do we solve? Does a landscaper cut grass, or do they help you keep up with the Joneses? Or do they save you time? Or do they save you money? Those are problem solved. And that's a mindset shift that is the first thing, because once you really lock onto that, now your confidence goes, oh, I solve a problem. I can help you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one of
so
the hardest things to articulate for consultants is what, because a lot of people say, and I could probably group myself into one of those years ago, that, oh, we do it all. Like, we can help you with a lot of things. So I don't know what problem I solve. I can just tell me what your problem is, and I'll help you. Right. So it's to really dig deep and figure out, all right, what is it that you really solve? What is the problem you're really out there helping people with? And there are a lot of things you could probably do, but not just what is the problem, but where's your sweet spot in that? Where's your sweet spot in solving that problem?
That's exactly right. So there's a problem, but then there's probably a sub niche that it's counterintuitive, because you actually want to go less is more here. Like, you want to scope it down, because now you're the expert. You're the expert in this particular thing. So you could be an expert in writing. It's like, for beginners, or just writing in general, because that's too much. Yeah. What are we talking about?
What are we
exactly?
What kind of writing are we
Shakespeare,
talking about?
right? Let's narrow this down. I help writers, like someone who is a copywriter might say something like, I help beginning writers crush it on LinkedIn. That would be like super niche. And guess what?
Like,
a lot of people need help with that. Exactly.
Sign
me up. I'll take your course if you're going to teach me to do that. Right.
Right. But even better is in what is it, 140 words or less. I can help you crush it on Twitter.
On Twitter.
140 characters or less. It's like, yes, please help me, because I hate doing it. So if someone could teach me how to do Twitter, I would appreciate it that much.
So what's the first framework in the book is teaches you how to get clear on the problem you solve in the marketplace.
Right. So that's the first P.
Yep. The second one, though, in terms of confidence, is now you have to have a process. If you're not clear on your process, how in the hell is your customer ever going to be clear? So there's two sides of confidence. There's your confidence as a seller, as a consultant, as a business owner, but then there's your prospect's confidence. And if you're not making them feel confident because you don't have confidence, well, I can guarantee you that's going to translate over to them, and they're going to take a step back and say, hey, thanks for your time. I'll let you know.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. I heard something today. I was on a coaching call with my mentor. And of course, this isn't today when this is being launched. But I had like the biggest aha about sales, because he was talking about our values. So the things that we value when we are buying is not the same things that we value when we're selling. So we end up in a value conflict because we try to sell the way we buy instead of looking at what's, like you're saying, the buying experience. What does your buyer value? Do they value results, or do they value price? So you might be buying based on price because you're looking at your budget. So you buy based on price, but when you're selling now, you want to sell based on results, but you're still in the buying mindset. So you reduce your prices, you do all kinds of stuff because you want a better price for yourself when you're buying. So now you have that cognitive dissonance in the process, and your prospect feels that energetically.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think you're putting your finger on the reality that a seller's mindset compared to a buyer's mindset, those are two different things. And if you don't understand that, if you don't understand the psychology of a buyer, and it's not like there aren't people out there every day talking about it on LinkedIn and Twitter. They'll tell you, this is what your buyer is thinking. I talk about it in my book. This is what your buyer is thinking. So don't approach it. I mean, there's a big to do about being your authentic self, and I'm all about that. But I heard my mentor say this recently. He said, when you go to if you sat down with a therapist, would you want your therapist to be their authentic self? It's like, you're kind of like, well, no, I want them to help me. Exactly. So as a business owner, as a consultant, as a seller, that's what your prospect is looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Can you help me? Ted, can your book help me? Will it help me sell more effectively? Will I have more confidence? Will I have a process and a path forward? That's what I'm suggesting it will do.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not it does that for you, you'll have to find out. But that's what I'm saying.
Implement. You got to read
Right.
and implement. So I want to talk about the process. I want to talk about PEP, PEP.
Yes.
So how did you come up with the framework? And then let's dive into that a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of triangles. Like the rule of 3 is my favorite thing. And as I was exploring sales methodologies and how I've executed 5 sales methodologies in my life, and got to the point where, you know what, I'm just going to build my own. And the reason was we spend so much time trying to sort of lasso our prospects into our process.
Mm-hmm.
And what I realized is that's not effective. And actually, that's part of the problem. So what I wanted to do was create a principle-based approach. Like, what are the principles that need to be in place? Because if you're operating off of the principles, well, that gives you more flexibility. It's like the question becomes not how you created the safe environment, did you? See the difference?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you've got to create ownership. Did you create ownership? And that's what principles do. So each section of PEP, which is positioning, which includes positioning and prospecting, because if you don't have your positioning right, that's your point of view. If that's not clear, your prospecting is awful. It's truly awful, because you're not talking about the problem you solve. You're just out there saying, I'm awesome, I'm awesome, I'm awesome. Look at me, look at me. Exactly. You sound like Arnold Horshack. Oh, pick me. So we don't want that. So positioning, it's really, the way I think about it is sales is a series of movements, and positioning is the movement from getting someone's attention to getting them interested in talking to you. That's just step 1. If you can't do that, then don't go anywhere else. Like, focus on how you do that. How do you get someone's attention? How do you get them interested in talking to you? That's positioning. Exploring takes that interest and moves it to buy-in. And buy-in is when a prospect looks at you and says, you could be a potential solution.
Creating trust.
Exactly. And then finally, presenting, which everyone thinks about as this is sales. Presenting, right? You're pitching, you're being persuasive. It's actually the smallest part. Presenting is actually taking that buy-in and turning it to ownership, letting your prospect take it or not. And that is the hardest mindset shift right there, to be able to say, hey, this is how we would do it. Does this resonate with you, or am I barking up the wrong tree? Right? Does this resonate with you? I heard somebody say, or am I fishing without a hook? Right?
and
anyway,
after hearing you for the last couple years talk about and even deliver some strategies to us, you're always giving people an out. Yes. You're always giving them an opportunity. In every step of the way, you're giving them an opportunity to continue to own the process. Allow me to continue to walk down the street with you, or we could part ways. We got to the corner. Okay, you can go this way. I can go this way. Oh no, want to walk down? Okay, we'll walk down a little bit. Ask you again. We could still go this way or this way. So you're always giving people an option to make a decision, I should say, throughout the process of the sale. Yes, so they don't feel sold to. They don't feel high pressured sold to. They don't feel like, this person is trying to get me to buy something. It's like, I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you solve your problem. But if you don't want my method, that's fine. I just want to
Yeah,
make
if my
sure.
solution doesn't meet your need, I'll try and help you find somebody else who can.
Mm-hmm. And that's where the evolution of sales is getting to. Instead of pressuring people into spending their money, it's more, listen, let's be of service. And, a lot of times when you're of service, people do come back to you if they go somewhere else and realize these people can't do what I need them to do, or I can't do it myself. So I might as well hire you to do it.
In worst case scenario, you leave as a trusted advisor.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to leave as. Whether you use my services or not, you'll remember me as someone you can trust. That's the most important thing, because you may come back or you may refer others. And not that I'm doing it for that reason. I want to do it just for my own reasons of my own integrity, and helping somebody get to where they want to go. And if they don't feel like I have the right solution, I might actually revisit and say, hey, could I tweak my solution to make it better?
Yeah.
Right. Because I learned.
That I said, was there
Yeah.
something in there that, yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. So do your kids sell you?
They do. Yes. They are quite good at putting together presentations. So I give them the framework. I gave them the framework when they were young, like 6 or 7. Framework is very simple. PSA, problem, solution, action. Hey, Dad, here's the problem, right? We're lonely without a dog, right? Our family's not complete without these pets, right? It builds, and if you were to agree to this, they list out all the things they would do and how it would benefit them and how it would benefit their experience of growing up, etc. So yeah, they sell quite well.
Nice.
My kids are masters at empathy, thanks to my wife. So I've actually learned empathy from my kids and from my wife more than any other place.
So that goes back to, people say, well, this is how I've done it all the time. This is who I am, and I'm not changing. I can't change at this point, and we started the conversation there where, as a strategist, you can be this particular way, but there are techniques that you can learn to help soften that, or to help you navigate more effectively the way you communicate. So it's important to understand who you are and what those caution areas could be, so that you can actually do something about it and not just keep saying, well, that's just how I am. I guess.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point. I think a lot of times folks will get an objection, and a lot of people won't realize that. And so what do they do to the objection? They push back on it. Well, what does your prospect do? Well, they push back. Well, now you're in a fight. Why would you ever fight with your hero? That doesn't make any sense. I'm not suggesting don't challenge your hero. Why would you ever fight with them? And so when you think about an objection, I'm a fighter naturally. Like, if you push on me, I'm going to push back. That's how I'm wired. It's not a good thing or bad thing. Let's just observe it. No judgment, right? It just is. The question becomes, there are times when that's very effective. It's not effective in a sales environment. In a sales environment, you want to be cool hand Luke. You want to be calm, assertive. You want to have a non-anxious presence. You don't want to be this excited puppy and talk. That is one of the biggest turnoffs. That is killing your deals.
Oh.
And it's creating a horrible experience. Yeah, talking too much. And so I think what we want to say when when a prospect or customer has a objection, we say, oh, tell me more. Right? Oh, hey, that's a great point. I hadn't thought of that. Tell me more. And once because an objection is an emotional response, and we can't respond to it rationally. We have to create the safe space to say, well, let's talk about that. And once you do that, guess what happens? At the end, you can say, hey, I really appreciate what you shared with me. Are you open to a different perspective, or should we just put this aside? Because I'm not going to be rattled, right? No one wants to talk to a rattled, trusted advisor, right? You know what I mean? Think about Mr. Miyagi didn't get rattled. Yoda didn't get rattled.
You got rattled.
Right.
Nope, sure didn't. So the last thing I'm going to ask you about, and then I have some rapid fire questions for you, but I
All
wanted
right.
to know, because I felt like this kind of can lead into our rapid fire, is what
All
is
right.
the rapid discovery approach?
Oh, yeah. So that is for pros. And that is when you know your industry really well. And when you know that the problem is known. So, for example, I train a lot of folks who are dealing with complex organizational issues, from all the way from talent to strategy.
Mhm.
So the solution could be a whole number of things, and you have to do a real deep dive of discovery to figure out the best path forward and prioritize. On the other hand, a lot of sellers out there are working with known issues. So you don't like a deep dive discovery would just be sort of a waste of time. It's like, no, we're dealing with this tax software and we want it to do this and it doesn't, right? Or like something like everyone knows that there's a turnover problem in retail.
Yeah.
Okay, it's keeping people in retail is almost impossible. So you don't necessarily need to do a deep dive discovery. So what you can do is you can do all of pre-call planning, which is pretty standard, and I actually have a template for it that's part of the book. And you can, in 15 minutes, find out just about everything you need to do. And you can say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. or non-gender retail person that I'm talking to, we all know that turnover is an issue in retail. What we don't know is this, and this. And we have a different approach that allows you to solve that problem that nobody else is doing. And that really creates the interest. It creates that buy-in. Oh, I want to hear about that. Show me that, because I'm tired of, we've tried everything else for the last 50 years and it's still not working.
Yeah.
So you can go in with the rapid discovery. It's like, hey, this is your position. You've been here for 10 years. You've risen through the ranks. You've done this. Your organization's here. This is what's happening in the industry. Here's my suggestion. Here's how we look at things. And again, I'm in love with this. You may not be, so say no if you don't like it. But this is how we approach it. Boom, 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 boom. What do you think?
Right. So
That is
because you don't have to go deep into the discovery process to
exactly.
know what's like.
That would frustrate people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And two things that frustrate me is that's one. And two, when people talk past the close. Like, I've already said yes, and you keep trying to sell me on your product or service. I'm like, I already said yes.
Yeah, that goes back to process.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You don't have the next step process. Hey, great, I'm so glad to hear that. And then boom, you lay out your next steps.
Right. Or they just don't hear the yes, because it wasn't that they didn't get to the end of their thing to ask for the sale yet. Because sometimes when someone's, you know that you have this issue and you've been looking for that solution, and they just happen to get you in the right place in the right time. And you're like, oh, great. I've been waiting for someone to call me about this, but I've been busy and I didn't have a chance to go search it. So yes, let's go. And they want to go through their entire process. It's like, and now you have to sit through their whole 15-minute presentation when you said yes 15 minutes ago and I could have been done. It's like, come on.
Yeah, it's hard. It is hard to see that for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
hard to sit through it too.
You had to sit through it.
Most salespeople will listen to speak. They won't listen to learn, or they don't listen to learn. A trusted advisor will listen to learn.
I think what's happening now with a lot of these scripted sales call centers, that's what's happening with them. It's because they have to go through their script and get to the end of their script and then pass you on to whoever is the next person in line. Even if you say yes at the beginning of their script, they still need to go through because they're being recorded and they have to do certain things. So maybe that should be the next iteration of the sales process. Can we figure out how to have better call centers?
Yeah, sales at scale sucks the life out of people, right? When you start to do it in that scripted fashion. It can be done, and there are organizations that are doing it, but it takes a different approach and a different way to think about it.
I had one today actually, and it was not something I was interested in. And I told her, and she's like, well, let me just, and she just kept going on and on and on. And then she's like, well, let me pass you over to my, whatever that person was going to be. And I hung up because I'm like, I'm not interested. I told you I'm not interested. And I hung up and they called me back. And she's like, okay, hold on. And I got to the other person and the other person just kept talking. And I'm like, yes, but I'm not interested. And
yeah, she's probably comped on getting you to that, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how she gets you there, as long as
and
you're
she
there.
called from a different phone number. So, like they have all these randomized numbers that they call you from. And then, so he kept talking and I kept saying, this is not, and I totally threw a monkey wrench. I wasn't trying to be mean or anything because I'm like, I'm just telling you, this is not something I'm going to be investing in. It's not something I'm interested in for my business. It's just not. And he's like, well, I said, thank you very much. I appreciate you calling me. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Just got completely confused.
And just to turn it, all he had to do is turn it is, oh, hey, glad to hear things are going well. Tell me what's working for you, right? And just have a conversation. See where that goes.
It wasn't in the script.
That's not on the script because no one knows how to be a trusted advisor because no one's teaching it. And so that's what I try and teach in the book.
Yeah,
stop being a robot and just be real.
Yeah, they're volume sales, so they're probably not going to be trusted advisors. They're just looking to crank out volume.
That's true.
Because they know it's a numbers game. So they're just playing the numbers. But it could be a numbers game with compassion.
You could add some empathy in there, some principles of, hey, have a conversation, active listening, and watch how it changes.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this conversation. Okay. So we're going to jump to our rapid fire questions and don't think too much about it. Just whatever comes to your mind, you can share. So first question is, what is the biggest leadership mistake that you ever made or was the victim of?
Doing too much myself as a leader. I didn't give it to the team.
That's usually a big one. Yep.
Yep.
So what's the best leadership advice that you ever got that you still implement today? Humility.
It's hard to implement it, but it's always thinking about, I may be wrong here. And truly meaning that, like, hey, this is just an idea. Or even better, don't come with an idea, just give this problem to the team and let the team think it through.
Nice.
Because they may come up with something
with your high A.
Yeah, and my high A and my higher D. So the problem with a strategist profile is not only do I have the idea, I also have the solution, and I think it's right. Right? So it's a strategist can be defined as let's do it really fast, and let's do it my way.
Because you have that low C too, so you're really fast driver.
Yeah.
So yeah, people have no idea what I'm talking about, but if you want to know more about A, B, C, and D that we've been talking about, just drop me a note.
Yeah, Alicia's a pro, so reach out to Alicia. Yeah, she'll show you how you can understand how your people think and work in ways that you never thought possible.
Thank you. So if you were a castaway on a desert island, what 3 things would you hope washed up on shore or was airdropped and that you couldn't live without, and one could not be your cell phone? Now, I know you have 4 kids, so let's say your whole family got washed up, so you don't have to pick which ones
my first one is I hope a boat washes up because I don't like the beach. Get me out of there. It's too hot. I'm pale white. I just burn if I go out into the sun. So I want to get out of there.
Shirt.
Yeah, and if like a floating Starbucks came in, I'd take that, because I gotta have my coffee.
Yeah.
So
you're the first person that actually said you wanted a way to escape.
Get me out of there.
I'd like a helicopter. The faster, the better.
Yeah.
So what's the third thing?
Good food. I don't want to just be eating like fish, raw fish.
You don't want to eat fish and coconuts all day long.
Right.
Yeah. food.
According to Castaway, coconuts is a natural laxative, so I don't think you want to be in that position if you can avoid it.
Oh, so this is an interesting one that always stumps people. It's if you were a song or song title, what would it be and why?
I would say it's the stumbling man who keeps getting back up again.
The stumbling.
So yeah, my life's journey has been a series of just stumbling and learning as I go. It's like, oh man, that was a mistake, and then but I get back up and I learn from it.
So you created your own song title. I wanted a song that's out there that you know that you love. That's a song.
Oh well, you know what? That's probably not fair. So I'm a songwriter. So
So the
I have a whole
man.
history on music. I'd have to think about an actual song. Start Me Up, maybe.
There you go. Because if you're the stumbling man, but you always keep getting up, just start me up.
Me up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Now you've thrown out a bunch of books throughout our conversation today, but what are you reading right now?
I'm reading several, but the one that I'm most into right now is The Inner Game of Tennis by Tim Galway. Written originally in 1971. And I think he's like the father of modern, I'm not going to get this right, but the father of like modern sports thinking. Like it's all in your head, and he captured that very early on. And back in the 70s when nobody was talking about it, everyone was talking about technique, and what that technique does is it makes you rigid. And that's why in sales, like your structure, your system, while important, if it's not tempered with principles that allows you to be free and move within that framework of the principle, then you get tense. And when you get tense, your prospect feels that, and it just feels like this and this. Who wants to feel like this when you're buying something or when you're trying to be helped with something? It shouldn't feel like that. So the inner game of tennis, it is about tennis, but it's not about tennis.
It's about tennis, but it's about the mindset. And since I love tennis, I'm going to check it out. That sounds good.
You'll enjoy it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ted. Is there anything that I haven't shared that you'd like to share with the audience that I haven't asked, I should say?
Only that let's stop selling and start helping. Let's not be like what we've grown up with and we don't like when it comes to sales, and we don't have to be. We can be trusted advisors that people will seek out. So thank you so much, Alicia. Always great to talk with you. Great job.
Welcome. How can people get the book?
It'll be available on Amazon Tuesday, September 6th.
All right. So Tuesday this is airing. So it's available now. Go out, get the book. Feel Good About Selling by Ted Olson. The link will be in the show notes. So check it out. And you can also connect with Ted. I'll put his LinkedIn in the show notes as well, so that you can connect with Ted as well and let him know how the book is once you get it. Thank you so much, Ted.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.